Hey, what's going on, everybody? How is everybody doing? Happy 2019. We are here. We made it to the new year. Hopefully you guys are doing fantastic. We're doing FA Q&A. We're getting it started for this year. For those of you guys who are brand new to the community, because I know we have a lot of new people, what this is FA Q&A. It's a chance for me to hop on here and just talk about some different topics that are involved in Dubsado, go through some different features. But since it's the beginning of 2019, I wanted to go ahead and do one on just getting started in Dubsado, because I know we have a lot of new people who are coming into the system. And so I wanted to give a good rundown, best practices for getting set up in the system and continuing to move from there. We have a lot of new business owners, new people who are jumping into our system. So we are going to be talking about getting set up in Dubsado, and we'll be going over some of the basics here today, so we won't be going too in-depth on specific topics. This will be more of just going in and talking about how to get set up in the system, a good way of navigating the system, and what you should start with and how you should start progressing through the system. So that's what we're really going to get into today. Just want to check and make sure that we're up on Facebook, and we're good. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about getting set up in Dubsado first. If you guys are not familiar with what I do with Dubsado, I'm part of the account solutions team here. And so what we do is we help you guys get set up in Dubsado and go over your process, go over automation or how proposals work or different aspects of the system. That's what I'm involved with, and we do the one-on-one calls here with Dubsado. So I talk to a lot of different business owners. I talk to a lot of different types of people and types of businesses. And so I really get a good understanding of what people are struggling with, what people need help with the most. And so that's why we do these FAQ&As, so we can kind of get the information out on a mass scale. So when we're talking about getting set up in Dubsado, the biggest thing that I notice is that when people are first coming into the system, they want to jump in and go to automation right away, because our workflows are very powerful and people want to jump in and get started and start making those workflows right away. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start from the beginning, start from the basics, and I'm going to teach you how to get to that automation stage and the best practices to get it, so that when you do get those workflows going, which is what everybody wants to have in the system, and it's a powerful tool, I want to get you guys to the stage where you guys are ready to do workflows and get them so they are super proficient, they're very streamlined. And so that's what we're going to kind of go over today, because that's what a lot of people that I talk to want to do, is to get workflow set up. And so I'm going to kind of help you get to that point so you can understand the foundation that needs to be laid before you start going in and building all of your workflows. So let me go ahead and I will share my screen here. And what I have here is something that I just put together, and it's not necessarily official and the only way to get set up in Dubsado, but for me, I really believe that this is a great path that people can take, and it's a way that makes sense. Each level that we go through today will stack on top of the previous level. So you're not going to be setting up things at random. This is a great way of, if you start here and then go on to the next step, it makes sense why you're going on to the next step. And I think that that's something that can really help people when they're getting set up in the system, is understanding why I'm building this right now and why it leads to the next step and then continues to progress. So we'll start here, and I'm just going to jump right into it. So this is just a little form that I made and I put in here so that people can kind of get a good grasp on how to get set up. So this is just a quick setup strategy guide, and we'll kind of walk through this step by step. So if you are taking notes, get out a pen and paper and write down everything that you can here, because I think it'll really help you guys when you're moving through the system. So the very first thing that I always encourage people to do on the phone is to write out your process. And why is this important? Is because as business owners, everyone has a certain process that they go through with the client. It might switch up every once in a while. Sometimes it might be a little different. You might have a process that's the exact same. So every single time you get a customer, you do the exact same thing. But everyone has a certain process that they work through with their client. And it's important to understand what your process is. If you don't know what it is, this is the perfect opportunity to sit down and start writing out how you want to communicate with your client. As soon as they inquire about your services, what is it that they need to receive? What emails do they need to receive? What forms? When do these forms need to send out? When do you send them their contract? When do you want a deposit down? All of these things are very, very important when it comes to understanding what your flow is. Because when we're talking about automation and workflows and all of the fancy things that Dubsado can do, it all starts with your foundation and if you have a process that's already written out. So you have to think about it from a very, very basic level of how do you want your process to flow as a business owner? Do you want things to be 100% automated? I talk to a lot of people who they want every single piece of it to be automated. If you do, there may be some things in your process that you need to tweak in order to get it 100% automated. There are some people that I talk to that want their process 100% manual. They don't want anything going out without their approval, without them sending it out by hand. So it's important to understand as a business owner using Dubsado as a user, how do you want your process to flow and have that written out? I know in the Facebook community, there's a lot of people that have, they do like sticky notes and they write out their process. They do flow charts. Some people just take a pen and paper and write things down. However you want to write out your process, do that first before you do anything else. Write out how you see your process going. And throughout this, you'll be able to make tweaks to it. You won't get it perfect the first time, but at least write out a good skeleton that you can kind of get a good idea of, this is how I want my process to flow. Once you have your process written out, the next thing I encourage people to do is circle or mark every piece of content that you have in your process, and I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. I made a little thing here so it kind of makes sense of what I'm talking about. And so if you guys can see this, okay, hopefully it'll pop up there. What this is I wrote out a process that I have, and I went through and I circled the content that I'm going to need in order to get this into the system. So for example, the first thing I want to do is send a welcome email once a new lead comes in. Then I want to send them an intake questionnaire. Then I give the client a call. Then I send out my proposal, contract, and invoice to the client. Then after they sign the contract, I want to send out a welcome packet. Once they're done with that welcome packet, then I want to send a next steps email. So as you can kind of see, I've written out my process of how I want to work with the client, just overall how I want to work with them. And then I went through and circled every piece of content that's involved in this entire process. So I know I need a welcome email. I need an intake questionnaire. I need to create a proposal. I need a contract. I need a welcome packet. I need a next steps email. So as you can see, when you are going through here and you are writing out your process, when you circle your content, what that's going to do is it's going to give you a roadmap and it's going to let you know this is what content I need to put into Dubsado. When you're building your workflows are going to look at what emails you have in the system, what forms you have done. So if you're going in and building out your workflow and you don't have your content in there, it's going to be really stressful building your workflow because you'll be jumping all over the place and it won't be streamlined in all your content there to begin with. So when you're writing out your process from top to bottom, the next thing that you do is go through and circle every piece of content that you're going to need to build into Dubsado. Everything, every single email, every form, anything that you're going to be sending out to the client, circle it. And that way you'll know what content you need to put into the system. Another little tidbit here, this is kind of just a pro tip that I've noticed just from helping people get set up, is that for every single form that you have in your system, go ahead and write a canned email for it and just put next to it, it's going to need a canned email. And I'll explain why a little bit later once we get into actually content creation. But every single form that you're going to be sending out to a client, you're going to want an email to match that form. So if you have an intake form, you want an intake email. If you have a welcome packet form, write an email for it. Proposal, write an email for it. It'll make sense a little bit later once we get into the content portion of things. But there is no such thing as having too many canned emails, and I cannot stress that enough. It's way better to have way too many canned emails than not have the right ones that you need. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit here. So after you've written out your process, after you've circled all the pieces of content that you need in the system, the next thing that I encourage people to do is go into the settings in Dubsado and get all of your brand settings set up first. So if you have, a social media account, which obviously you do here on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, the very first thing that every single platform encourages you to do is to go in and set up your account profile first. And in our system, the brand settings kind of resembles an account profile. So the next thing, if you see number 2 here, is connect everything in your settings. And I'll just touch on a few of these today. There are some things that some people will need, some people won't need, but I'll touch on some of the big ones today. But when you're first getting into Dubsado, you'll go up to the top right-hand corner here where the settings gear is at, and you'll want to click into there. And our settings, like I said, is kind of like an account profile. It's where you're going to put in your logo, your business name, address, all that good stuff. You can customize your dashboard colors, just kind of getting acclimated into the system. You can customize your portal. There's ways where you can add multi-users, all that good stuff. But the ones I want to talk about today, there's 2 in here, or I guess we'll talk about 3. The first one is the Receive Money tab. And this is going to be where you set up your payment processor. So a lot of people are wanting to jump in and start sending invoices and everything out, but it's very, very important to come into the settings and get your payment processor set up first. I won't go into huge specifics about all the details of Stripe, Square, and PayPal, but that'll be where you'll set up one of those 3 processors. The next one is going to be emails. This is super important in Dubsado as well, because when you're sending emails out to clients, sending out forms, sending out invoices, anytime you're emailing the client, you want it to be coming from your address and not Dubsado's address. So if you haven't come into brand settings and set up your email in this area, this is where you'll set up your outgoing email. And I do have some information. I know that the dev team, they might already have it done, or they are in the process of working on it, but multiple email addresses is going to be something that's rolling out within the first quarter of Dubsado. So it's already on their list. They're already planning on adding it in. So if you are waiting on that, we should have it done within the first quarter of 2019. So that's going to be amazing. But for right now, you'll be able to add one brand email address here. So either Gmail, or if you use SMTP settings, you can go ahead and add, your Apple email or Yahoo or Hotmail or anything like that. So email settings, huge area. The next one is going to be integrations. Some people might need this, some people might not. But if you are planning on using Zapier with our system, CloudSpot, which is our gallery platform that we have that's integrated with Dubsado, or QuickBooks, that's going to be in the integrations tab. So you might not need those 3, but if you do, it will be in the integrations area within the brand settings. So brand settings is definitely just go top to bottom through here when you first get in. Just set up your account profile. It will just kind of get all of that out of the way, and then you can go ahead and start building all of your content and start getting things set up. But brand settings is a good place to just go through and get kind of all those brand settings set up how you like them. There is one other thing, and it's your calendar. It just recently got moved into the actual calendar area, so that way with multi-users, the basic users can add their own calendar now. So that's something that we just recently moved out of the brand settings. It's now in the calendar area. So with the calendar, if you go to calendar settings up in the top right-hand corner here, you can sync up an outside calendar. So if you do have a Google Calendar or Apple Calendar that you want to bring into Dubsado, you can go to the calendar settings and then bring that in so that it can read that in Dubsado. And then there's also import and export options, and you can kind of toggle those as well. But the big ones are going to be your Receive Money, so linking up your payment processor, setting up your email so that all your emails are going from you, and then also your calendar is the other really big one, making sure that if you do have an external calendar, that you bring it into the system. So that is the next step that I encourage everyone to do, is go into the brand settings area, get all that set up, and then just get your calendar synced up if you want that in there. But that would be step number 2. And we'll jump to the forms again, and we'll go back to this setup guide. so we can kind of just follow along right down through here. So as you can see, I highlighted some of the big ones: receive money, calendar, emails, and then integrations I put optional because you might need it, you might not. But we do have a lot of people who are using QuickBooks, and so I do want to mention that as well in the integrations area. So the next thing, if we keep scrolling down here, is now we're going to get into content creation. So this is going to be the biggest part of what we talk about today. I'm going to explain why things stack on top of each other in the way that I have these listed here. Again, this isn't the only way to get set up in Dubsado, but if you're planning on using everything that the system has to offer, this is the best way to kind of work through all the different areas that Dubsado has, so it makes sense why you're building things when you're building things. And that's what we really want to educate on, and we're really going to try in 2019 to help you guys understand why you're doing things in Dubsado and why you should be building things the way that you should, and so it makes sense for you guys as you're navigating the system, because we want you guys to be pros using it. And so that's going to be a big thing that we're going to work on this year, is just kind of educating on why you should build things at certain times and how processes work and how you can think about that. So the very first thing when it comes to content creation is you're going to spend a lot of your time, especially if you're brand new in Dubsado, you're going to spend a lot of time in the templates area at first. The templates area, which is right here on the left-hand side, is going to be where all pieces of content are located, except for task boards, which is just kind of an optional thing that we'll talk about later. But as far as anything you're sending out to the client, that's all in the templates area. So because you've already written out your process, and that's already written out, and you have all of your pieces of content circled, you already have a roadmap on this is the content that I need. So whenever you're going into the templates area, you never have to second guess on, well, what do I need in my contracts area? What questionnaires might I need? Or what emails do I need? Because you've already written out your process and circled everything, you already have a list of every single piece of content that you need. So that's why I kind of want to jump back really quick to number one and hit home that writing out your process as detailed as you can will make the content creation portion so much easier. It'll make workflow building so much easier. So spend a lot of time writing out your process so that you really know what content you need and kind of the path that you're going to be going on as you work through the system. So create your content. Number three, the first thing we'll talk about is packages. So packages is going to be right here in the templates area, and what packages are is anything that has a price point to it. So a lot of people kind of get caught off guard with the term packages, but underneath the packages area, you really can customize the packages to be anything that you want it to be. So if you want a la carte items in there, or add-ons, or your main packages, anything that has a price point to it, you can create it as a package. And what this is going to do is when you're building invoices, when you're building proposals, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you can take these packages and drag them onto the form, or you can have a list of all of your services and you can build invoices a lot quicker versus having to type in the same package each time. And one thing that we recently added, if you guys haven't seen it yet, is now on proposals, which we'll talk about in a little bit here when we get to forms, but on proposals now you have the ability to edit packages on your proposals now. So now you can really think about just making general package ideas in the templates area here, and then when you get to a proposal, if it's more customized, if you do a lot of custom work, you can customize it on the fly in the proposal now, which is super cool. So don't hesitate to make as many packages as you want to here, but really anything that has a price point to it, put it in the packages area, and it will save you time building invoices. And once you get to your proposals, it'll make sense why you did this first. So services, number one, come in here and build out all of your services or goods or whatever it is that you offer. Second thing, so we'll jump back over to the forms here. So that will be that's packages. The next thing that I have is forms. So the next thing with the forms area, this is going to usually be one of the biggest portions of the templates area that you'll work through. because the forms is going to be really anything that you're sending to the client that has to do with attachments. So the forms area, I'll kind of run through these really quickly here, just so you can get an idea of what the forms do, the functionality behind them for each one. So contracts and sub-agreements are going to be the forms that we have in the system that you need people to sign. With contracts and how our system works, whenever you have a project, you can assign one main general contract or one overall terms and conditions contract to each project. And if you have other things that they need to sign, that's where the sub-agreements would come into play. So like if you have non-disclosure agreements or photo releases or anything like that, any amendments to contracts, you'll want to make those sub-agreements, and you can add as many of those to a project as you want to, because it's considered a form instead of a contract. So these two are going to be the two that you can use if you want anything that needs signatures. I know some people use sub-agreements for proofing because you can put signature boxes on here. So contract sub-agreements, that's the functionality there. Questionnaires are probably our most open-ended form because you can really use them for just about anything. There's not really a specific function for the questionnaires. It usually is to collect information, but I've seen people use questionnaires for just about anything. With the questionnaires, we also have the ability with this up arrow here. If we click that, you can actually drop PDFs into Dubsado and use those as Dubsado templates. Now, if you are using this feature, you're not able to fill out these PDFs that you drop in here. If it does need to be filled out, it needs to be a Dubsado form, so you'll have to create it in Dubsado if you want the client to be able to fill it out. But if you do have PDFs that are more like read-only or just kind of more informative information that you want to send the client, then you can just drop it in as a PDF, and then you can send it out, upload it to the client portal, all that good stuff, and it's considered a Dubsado form. So drop those PDFs in there if you have those, but questionnaires are just a way to get more information from the client. So that would be collecting info. And then the proposal form. The proposal is our most dynamic form, and it can do the most when it comes to streamlining your process. What the proposal is designed to do, and I'll open up my proposal here, is to take your packages. So we already have our packages created. So the proposal is designed to take your packages and put them on this form so that someone can come in here, anybody who's inquiring, you can send them this form, and then they can make selections on what they're interested in. Now, all of these optional add-ons that I have, these are all packages that I've created. So as you can see, even if you have add-ons or a la carte items, things like that, you can still drag these onto this form. So proposals are going to be anything that you want to have the client make selections and get things from you. Now, there are ways to use the proposals for quote-like proposals. If you do a lot of custom work, there are ways to do that. I will probably do a proposals FAQ&A next week because there's a lot of things that you can do with proposals. And so I'll probably dive in a little deeper on proposals next week and kind of talk about the different methods that you can use. But the overall functionality of this form is for the client to see your scope of work or see the services that you offer. And when they make their selections, then it will draft an invoice in their project for them. So the proposal is kind of designed just as that order form that people can fill out. And the last form that we have is the lead capture form, and this form is designed to be like a contact me form that can be housed on your website. So this would be kind of like your first point of contact with a client, and you can embed this on your website, or you can send a direct link of this form to somebody. So if we click the share button, you can grab the frame code and embed it on your website, or you can grab this direct link and then also send it to a client. Another cool piece of information that a lot of people have been doing lately is grabbing this direct link and then bookmarking it on their computer in their browser, and if they get an inquiry or if they get information from somebody, instead of sending them the form, they'll just grab that information from the email and then internally fill out the lead capture form. So you can use lead captures internally if you want to. That way you don't have to send things out to the client. If you get a cold email, you could just fill this out yourself and then that gets them created in Dubsado as well. So there's some cool things you can do with the lead capture. And then one other big thing with the lead capture is this form can start a workflow automatically. So when you're thinking about writing out your workflows, if you haven't yet, you can think about starting from this point of they fill out a lead capture form, and that's their first point of contact, and then a workflow can take off from there. So if you're writing out your workflows, think about it from them filling this form out and what happens right after that. So they might get a welcome email, and then maybe you go straight to the proposal or straight to a contract. However your process works, it can start once they fill this form out. This can activate a workflow for you. So that is a rundown of all the different forms that we have. So that would be the next step that you would do in our setup strategy guide here. So we've covered packages, we've covered forms. The next thing that I have is canned emails. And the reason why I put canned emails after forms is because what I kind of mentioned in the first thing that we talked about every form, write an email. Once you have all of your forms in Dubsado, then you can know what forms you need to write an email for. And this will make sense when we talk about workflows. But the canned email section is also in templates. This is going to be where you can house any emails that you find yourself sending out to clients all the time. It's the same email or the same version of the same email all the time. Thank you emails, payment reminders, welcome emails. I've seen people that were not a good fit emails. Anything that you know that you type out to a client all the time and you just wanted to have it saved and you can send it, anytime you want to or via a workflow, create those in canned emails. And I'll hit this home again. There's no such thing as too many canned emails. If you even think that you might be sending it out more than once, just write it in canned emails, and then if you use it, amazing. If not, it's there for you. So don't worry about having too many canned emails. Anything that you can think about of, I send this email all the time, write it in here, and then that way it's saved and you can use it whenever you would like to. So canned emails is the next one. And then we'll jump back over to forms. So if you guys are taking notes, we've done packages, we've done forms, we've done canned emails. Those are the biggest three that you'll probably spend a lot of time on, is getting your packages, forms, and canned emails together. Those are kind of the big three that I always mention whenever I'm walking people through the system. The next thing we'll talk about is payment schedules. So if we go to the templates and then go down to payment schedules, payment schedules are going to be a way that you can let the client know when something is due and for how much, and you can send out your reminders or payment reminders to people through here. So if you require like 50% down, 50% later, or maybe $100 down, $1,000 due, at a week before their wedding or something like that, that's where you'll build payment schedules. And what this will do is you can take these schedules and put them on invoices so that clients can see, oh, I need to pay $100 now, and then the rest of it's not due for another 3 months. So anything that has to do with require this much down, this much later, whenever you get into that kind of lingo, that will be a payment schedule. Or if you're trying to set up reminders to go out to clients, if they haven't paid, or hey, you have a payment coming up, you'll build that in the payment schedule area. So that is another great place to input information. They're considered templates, so you can put in payment schedules next. So packages, forms, canned emails, payment schedules. The next thing we'll talk about is the scheduler. We won't dive into too much detail with the scheduler. I know it's brand new and a lot of people are getting acclimated with it, but the scheduler templates, I'll kind of give you just a quick rundown. With the scheduler, the whole purpose of the scheduler is however many different appointment types you have. So you might have a 20-minute consultation. You might have a full day event that you book out. You might have an hour session that you do, different types of appointments. You'll build a separate scheduler template for each different appointment type you have. So for me, if I have, and I'll get rid of this one because it doesn't really make much sense. If I have a 20-minute consultation and then I also do an actual photography session, and those are two different blocks of time, I might take more 20-minute consultations this day than actual sessions. You'll build out a different template for each template or each appointment type. So that's kind of a rundown of that. You are able to set your availability per template. So if it's different from one to the other, you can do that as well. And you can set how far in advance people can book or how far in advance they can see on your calendar. You can set confirmation emails up, and you can attach forms and all that good stuff. So the scheduler templates, if you're setting your availability and appointment types, that would be the next step that I would encourage people to do, is build out your scheduler templates at that point. The reason why this is this far down is because here you can choose the email that gets sent out with your scheduler, or if you have a confirmation email that you've created, or a notification email or things like that you have. That's where you'll do the canned emails first, and you'll make sure you have those canned emails written. So when you're building your scheduler templates, you can just choose the canned emails that you want to use. So you'll basically build your emails for this first, and then that way when you're building your scheduler templates, you can just select from those emails. So scheduler is the next thing. So we're kind of just walking through here. So packages, forms, canned emails, payment schedules, scheduler templates, and now we can finally get to workflows. So as you can see, if you are getting started in Dubsado, there's a lot of things that need to be in place and need to be in order before you even begin to start working on workflows. So I've had a lot of people that have jumped on calls with me, and they just started their trial. They haven't touched Dubsado, and they want to jump in and start working on workflows right from the beginning. You can do that, but it's extremely daunting because the workflows are very content dependent. So if you don't have content in the system, it's going to be really hard to build your workflows out, or you're going to be doing a lot of back and forth. So after you have your content ready, so packages, forms, and canned emails and all that good stuff, now you can go in and you can build kind of we'll call it the first round of your workflow. And I'll explain why we'll do kind of a revision of the workflow later. But whenever you get to the workflows here, this is going to be when you're laying kind of your foundation. You don't have to have it perfect just yet, but you're laying the foundation of your workflow out because you have the necessary content to build that out. So we'll jump into workflows here, and we'll just kind of talk about these. So with your workflows, I have a ton of them here because I do a lot of experimenting, so I have like 30 different workflows. Your workflow essentially is going to be the process that you wrote out already. So at this point, you already have your workflow written, and so hopefully you have that written out already. You already have your content together. So what the workflow is taking your process that you wrote out and the content that you created and really just meshing them together. That's all the workflow is. So if you don't have those two things done, you can see how when you're building your workflow, you might say, well, I don't know what happens after this, or, oh, I don't have my contract created. I need to go back and create that. So the workflow works best, and it will be the most efficient in building it if you have your process written out already and your content created. And then you can come into the workflow and start building. So what the workflow is it's just step-by-step working through your process that you have written out. And you'll do that by adding workflow actions. And with this will give you a list of all the things that the workflow can do for you. So sending emails, sending forms out, sending out contracts, sending out invoices, all that good stuff. For those of you who also want some manual aspects to your workflows, you do have the ability to create to-dos for yourself. These are going to be internal reminders that you can create that will pop up at certain points in your process. And let's say you send out a certain form and then you need to get something done like call the client before the workflow moves on. You can always create to-dos and add internal reminders for yourself, so that way it's not 100% automated. You can have those manual aspects of I need to get this done before the workflow continues. So don't feel like workflows have to be 100% automated. They don't. They can be a hybrid of automation and manual, or you could have workflows that are 100% to-dos, and it's just all reminders. Once this gets done, I need this to-do to pop up, then I need this to-do to pop up. You can create it like that as well. So that's what the workflow is going to be. It's going to be a combination of choosing what action it is that you want to do, and then you'll choose what's going to make that action happen. So this is where you can have something send out, 7 days before their wedding or 14 days before their session, after a certain form is completed, after a payment's been made or they sign their contract. So you can choose the triggers for what's going to make this action happen. And I'll show you here why the content being in the system beforehand is important. If I were to go in and say I want to send an email out to a client, and then let's say I want to send out an email after they pay their invoice in full. So immediately, 0 days after an invoice is paid in full, I've chosen what I want to do. I've chosen when it's going to happen, what's going to make it happen. And then the third thing you're going to do is choose what content gets sent out. So those are the 3 steps in building any workflow action: is choosing what you want to do, when it goes out, and then what the content is that goes out with that action. So now there's a drop down that says, well, which email do you want to send? And when you click the drop down, it gives you a list of all of your canned emails. So as you can see, and this works the same way with forms, it'll give you a list of all of your forms that you have to choose from. So as you can see, if you have all your content prepared ahead of time, you can just come in here, click which email you want, and then go ahead and apply the action and keep moving. So it really helps to have all of your content prepared, because if not, you're going to be stopping here, going and building that canned email, coming back, creating the action, then you would get to the next action. Then maybe you have to go create your questionnaire, then come back and add it. And it's a lot of back and forth. And so a great efficient way for workflows is to just have all that content ready to go up front so that you can come through and build these actions pretty quickly, because all your content is there. Some of the people that I've worked with that just need some workflow tweaking, when I come into their account, they have all of their content prepared. It is so neatly arranged. Everything is there for the forms, the emails, everything is prepared, and their workflow is so much easier to work through and get everything set up the way it needs to be. So I definitely encourage you guys to take kind of that route when you're building your workflows. It'll just make it easier for you. So once you have your foundation of your workflow laid, again, it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to make a revision to it, but you'll get your foundation laid of the different actions that you want to send out based off the process that you wrote out. So then we'll jump back over to the forms here and go to the setup strategy guide. And the next thing we'll talk about is project statuses and job tags. These 2 things will kind of go hand in hand because they're on the same page, and we'll talk about these. So when you're creating project statuses and job tags, this will be related off of your workflow that you just built. And that's the best way to create project statuses. So let me jump over into the projects area. And for those of you guys who aren't familiar with this, this is going to be where you manage all of your clients. So anybody who comes into the system, whether they're filling out a lead capture form and they're getting dropped in here, whether you're creating them manually, the projects page is where you manage all of your clients. And some people are kind of confused on what does projects mean, what's clients, all of that. I'll clear the air. With the projects page, the project is just the hub where you do your communication. That's all it is. So don't get too hung up on the term project. All these right here are just different projects. And if I click into one, the project is just the main area where you communicate with them. So it's kind of like just a dashboard for that client. So they are not able to see this, but this is where you can send them emails, send them invoices or forms, send them your scheduler, or start workflows and tasks. So that's really all that the projects are just it's just basically the communication hub that you have with your client. So you'll have a project set up here, and then I'll break down what these project statuses are across the top here. What these are designed to do, they're designed to mirror what your workflow is already, and I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. So if I have a new lead that's coming into my projects area, the very first thing in my workflow that I'm doing is I'm sending them out a proposal. Let's say that that's just what my process is. Once they come in, I send them a proposal out. What you want your lead statuses or your project statuses to be up here is the different steps in your workflow that you're doing to work them through in order to become a job. So the whole goal of this projects area is to move people through your funnel or your lead process of how you work with them, the things that you send them, the actions that you do with them, in order to get them into the jobs area. So when I'm building my project statuses, what I'm doing is I'm looking at my workflow and I'm looking at what actions have I done in this workflow that I can turn into project statuses. So for example, as you can see here, I have proposal sent as my first status. So once they come in as a lead, I send them the proposal first. So in your workflow, if we come back to the workflow here, what you can do in the workflow is you can see my very first thing that I'm doing is I guess it's the second thing, is I'm sending out my proposal. That's one of the first things I'm doing in my workflow process. So then what you can do with your workflows is you can have the workflow move them into that proposal sent status right after the proposal's been sent out. So what the workflow and the project statuses are doing is they're looking at each other and they're reading, once this action happens, I want to move it into that next status. So if you come up here to the projects area now, once my proposal sends, I have the workflow now moving it into proposal sent. Same thing once I send my follow-up questionnaire, that's the next action that I want to follow. It moves it into there, and then once they book a consultation with me, it moves into that section. So the whole goal of this and the project statuses, and I'll show you where you can create those in a second, the whole goal of these is to, whenever you come into the projects page, you want to be able to see, okay, 8 people have been sent the proposal, and you don't even have to go in and know that the proposal's been sent or check to see if it's sent. The workflow's already sent it and it's moved it into the next category. There's 9 people who have booked consultations right now because maybe I've sent out my scheduler in the workflow, and then it can read once that's booked and then move them into a new section. So it helps to have your workflow built first before you do your project statuses, because your statuses should really be the different actions that you're taking in your workflow. Proposal sent, follow-up questionnaire sent, consultation booked, consultation completed, waiting on deposit, contract sent. So all of those different action items that I'm doing in order to get them to a job, those are all statuses. So I'll show you where to create those at. So if we go over to the Customize button here on the right-hand side, this is where you can build your overall flow that you have, whether that's a lead flow that you have or maybe once they become a job. So for example, once the contract has been signed in my workflow, I want it to move into a job now. It's now considered a job. The contract is signed. Now they automatically get moved into that category. Once they pay their deposit, now they're moving into the next one, and the workflow can read all of these things. So when you're building your project statuses, you want those to be based off of the actions that you're taking in your workflow. I hope that makes sense. And then the next thing we'll talk about is tags. So if you scroll down a little bit farther, you can create tags for each one of your projects that you have. What the tags are designed to do is to be able to put what type of client this is or what type of project this is. So if I'm a photographer, as you can see, I have sporting events, portraits, family, newborn, anything that you want to be able to search for a client really quickly and say, I want to see all of my family clients. I want to see all of my portrait people that I'm working with. However you want to be able to search for clients really quickly, make those a tag, and you can tag these projects, which you can also do in the workflow automatically. So that's going to be what tags are designed to do, is any type of way that you can think, I need to be able to find these type of clients really quickly, or I would like to find these type of clients quickly. You can make as many tags as you want to, and then those can be tagged on each project. So for example, my logo design here, I have a family tag on there. So if I wanted to tag anything that has to do with family, I can tag that project and then go into the filter here, and I can filter by tag. So now it would just bring up everyone who's a part of that tag. So when you're building your statuses, think about, how do I want to track where my client is at in the process of becoming a job? That's really all the statuses are designed to do, is track that when you come into the leads area. And then the tags are designed to be able to categorize clients and base them off of type. So that's how you can separate when to use a tag and when to use a status, is statuses are more for process and tags are more for types of clients. So hopefully that helps out with creating your different statuses and tags. But if we go back to our strategy guide, that would be the next two things that you would build. Is you would look at your workflow and build your statuses out, and then just go ahead and build your tags. Anything that has to do with the type of client that you want to categorize them. Now we're going to revise our workflow. Not necessarily revise it, we're just going to make some small additions to it. So now that you have your statuses built, now you can go back into your workflow and add in those status changes in each action that you're doing. Whenever you have that action that you want it to switch, now we can go in and add tags, and then we can add our statuses into the workflow. So by that, actually let me go back to the workflow here, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So if we go into this workflow here, let's say that the two actions that I've had originally are I want to send out the proposal and then I want to send out the questionnaire. When you come back in and you add in these status changes and these tags, now I want to add in change a project status right after the proposal gets sent. Change the project status right after the questionnaire gets sent. So when you're coming back in for this second round of your workflow, all you're really adding in is just these status changes and the tags that you've created now. And with the tags, you can tag any project right from the beginning. So let's say this is a newborn client that I'm working with, and I want them to get a newborn tag right away. As soon as this workflow starts, tag them as newborn. That's where you can start adding in those tags and statuses. So whenever you're coming back to your workflow, it's really just to add in those last little tweaks, the things that really make the automation pop. That's what you're going to be adding in on this second time you're going into this workflow. And just to let you know, a workflow might not, it might take more than 2 times. You might have to make some tweaks here and there. A lot of people, if your process changes, you might have to go into your workflow and change it. So don't get too caught up in trying to nail a workflow right from the very beginning and make sure it's perfect right from the start. You might have to go in and make some adjustments and make some changes. Maybe you want to add a few more to-dos here and there if you know that there's some things you need to get done. Maybe there's some more statuses you want to add. Your workflow will basically always be evolving and changing, because as we add more features to workflows, like the scheduler is a huge one, people had to go back into their workflows and start to make some adjustments. So don't get kind of constricted by my workflow has to be perfect from the very first round that I do it. You're always going to be morphing and changing your workflow as we add new features. As we continue to progress with Dubsado and add more and more features, you're always going to be making tweaks to your process and your workflows. So hopefully that relieves some pressure for you guys, so you don't feel too tied up in having to make sure that everything is perfect. You'll always be making changes. Let me take a look here. Had no idea about the project statuses to show where the client is in the process. Yes, Kaylin, it's amazing. Once we had the project statuses for leads and jobs, it opened up everything, and now workflows can really move the project statuses on their own, so you don't have to go by hand and change all of the project statuses every time an action happens. And the whole goal of that is to go into the projects area and just be able to see where people are at. Another thing I've heard people say too when they have their project statuses set up is they might see that they might have 20 people waiting on a deposit or waiting for that deposit, and that might mean that in your process you have a bottleneck right there, and you might need to tweak how you handle, this many people you're waiting on a deposit from this many people. So that's what these project statuses can really do as a business owner, is show you where things are streamlined really quickly, they move through this process really fast, and where people might be getting hung up in your process, and you might need to make some tweaks to how you navigate that. So it also can kind of give you some insight on, this is where people are getting caught up. Maybe I need to make some tweaks to my questionnaire so they understand how to get there quicker. I've seen a lot of people that can kind of see different breaks in their flow, or where things are super streamlined and they move through things fast. That's what this can give you the ability to do too, is kind of, in a way, run a report on where things are getting caught up. So project statuses, tags, you'll add those into your workflow. So now your workflow should be super robust by this point, because you have all of your groundwork laid out, and now you have all of the cool little status changes and tags are getting added, and it's really spicing it up and making the automation even more powerful. So now that you have your workflows revised and they're ready to go, I also added task boards in here because it is a part of Dubsado, but the task boards are going to be job boards that you can create in Dubsado that are more manual. So I won't get into too much detail about those because we don't have too much time here, but task boards here in the task area, you can create boards that are similar to like Trello, Asana, where they're project boards that are all manual checkoff items. So it doesn't really have anything to do with automation. But at this point, if you do have a task board that you want to build, you can go ahead and build that now in the process. And honestly, with the task boards, you can put them anywhere, but I just put them here at the bottom because it's really kind of just an optional thing if you need them or don't need them. And then the last thing is the lead capture. So we already talked about the lead capture form, but this kind of ties everything together. So now that you have your workflows built, now we can add these to a lead capture so that when you put your lead capture live on your website and you're saying, I'm ready to use Dubsado, everything is set up, and I'm putting this on my website so that way I know for sure that if someone fills out my lead form on my website, Dubsado on the back end is completely set up and ready to roll. So there's been some people who have put their lead capture live on their website without having content ready or without having their workflow set up and nothing's ready to go, and they get 10, 15 leads that start pouring in and they scramble. It's an immediate panic because they don't have everything ready. So before your lead capture is live on your website, make sure you've taken the time and set up that foundation in Dubsado and the content, the workflows, your project statuses, so that way once clients come in, you almost can just say, all right, I'm good. I don't have to worry about sending things out. It's already on an automated system. If there's to-dos, those will pop up in my workflows when it's time for those to get done. It's going to change statuses for me, add the tags correctly. So we'll talk about this lead capture here and how all of this ties into it. So if we go to templates and forms, and we'll jump into this last thing here, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the lead capture form. So on this form, there's two ways that you can add a workflow. And remember, you should have your workflows done by this point. So if you're adding a workflow to this, make sure it's completely ready to go. So on here, if you go to the settings tab, and this is in the lead capture form, you can apply a default workflow to start off a lead capture. So what does that mean? A default workflow is it doesn't matter who fills this form out. When they get a project created, the same workflow is going to get added to each person who fills this out. So there's no variety with the workflows. It is, once someone fills this out, I have one workflow, I want it to take off. It's just the same process for everybody. If that's how your business flows, then you can just click the drop down here and choose which workflow you want to take off from here. So let's say I put my workflow demonstration there. And what that means is once they get created as a project, because they filled out the lead capture, they'll get set up with a project, and then a workflow will also be applied to that project automatically. So that's why when you're building your workflows, you want to think about it from they fill out the lead capture, what happens from there? That's kind of the first point of contact, and then you can branch out. The other thing that you can do is you can actually ask a question on the lead capture that could initiate a different workflow based off their response. And that's going to be with this workflow element right here in the left corner of the elements chart right there. And the lead capture is the only form that can start workflows. So that's why this is kind of that how you want to write out your workflows is from the lead capture. But when you add one of these, what it does is it will say, what service are you interested in? So for those of you guys who have service-based or different types of services that you offer, this is where you can really make dynamic workflows, go different paths based off of what they're interested in. So from the point of view that we've kind of been talking about just on my end, if I'm a photographer, and let's say I do portraits, I do weddings, I do sporting events, and I do newborn photography, I'm constantly busy, on the move all the time. So if those are my options on the different paths that they can take, I don't want them to get the same workflow if they choose sporting events as if they do weddings. I probably don't want the same content going out too. I might want different emails, different proposals, different questionnaires. I might have a completely whole different set of things that I need them to get if they choose weddings over newborns. So what this allows you to do is choose which workflow will take off based off of what answer they choose. So if you do have a service-based business and you are planning on writing out your workflows, think about it from this aspect of, okay, I offer these different services. If they choose this, this is what I want to have happen. If they go this route, these are the emails and forms that I need them to get. And when you're writing it out that way, now you'll have all the different services that you offer in different areas and lanes, and then you'll know what content you need for each one of them. So that way it'll help you title your forms differently, title your emails differently, so it's easy to find those things. And so, for example, if I have a newborn workflow, once they choose newborn, I want them to get that workflow. And if they choose this, that means they're getting all the right emails, forms, everything is in the right sequence as they go down. They might be getting a different scheduler, they might be getting different questionnaires, emails, all that good stuff. But that all relates to your process. So as you can kind of see, as we've worked through this getting set up with Dubsado, the very first thing that it always starts with is, what is your process? How do you want your process to flow as a business owner? Once you know that and have it written out, then you can start creating your content that you'll need to send to clients, and then you'll be able to get the workflows, automation, all that good stuff, lead capture live. And then when you do start getting inquiries coming in, you've already laid an amazing foundation on the back end that once they start pouring in, there's very little work that you need to do unless you do a lot of custom work. Then there might be some things you need to do manually. But a lot of the automation capabilities of Dubsado you've already added into the system, so it's going to take away from you having to do a lot of that tedious work, because that's really what you're looking for, and what Dubsado is designed to do is to organize your process and automate what can be automated in your process. So if you don't have a process, then it's really hard to use Dubsado, because what it's designed to do is to just enhance the process that you already have and make it capable of doing things that you don't want to do, like the tedious things. And then it will also take care of just organizing things and, making sure your leads are here, jobs are here. I know these are my contracts, and you'll be able to be a little bit more organized. So hopefully this helped out a lot. If you know anybody who's brand new to Dubsado or needs help getting set up, just tag them in this or make a comment, share this. I really want to be able to just help people just get started in Dubsado and get using it, and just making sure that your processes are set up the right way. After I get done with the video, I will make a comment in the comment section where you can book a one-on-one call with us. If you want to talk about workflows or how your process works, if you just want educated on a certain topic of how this feature works with Dubsado, definitely book a call with us. They're free 20-minute consultations, so they're completely complimentary. You can set it up with us, and you get 20 minutes and you can go through what your process is. And then we also have 45-minute sessions as well, and those are $50. So if you do want to sit down with us for longer than just 20 minutes, we do have those options available to sit down and really go over your process and dig into a lot of the deep stuff that you have and how this should work here and how this should go there. So I'll link that up in the comment section. Book a call with us. It's myself and my colleague Sam. We're a part of the Account Solutions team, and we love helping you guys out. But 2019 is going to be an amazing year. We already have our plan for quarter one here at Dubsado of what we're going to be adding. Some of it is secret. Some of it you'll probably see popping here and there as we're progressing. So super excited about the amazing things we have going on at Dubsado. We just added a few new people, so we're growing rapidly, and we are loving every minute of it. So hopefully you guys are doing fantastic today. Start 2019 out with a bang. I'll be back next week for FAQ&A, and I think I'm going to do one on proposals. So if you want to know everything there is to know about proposals, I'll be covering that next week. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. What's up, Rachel? Hopefully you're doing well. And yeah, so we'll chat next week, guys. Have a great day.